It's cheese.
Dip.
Like
It's
cheese
cheese.
dip.
I didn't know what that was, man. You eat cheese dip, bro? Oh, well, I mean,
Well, yeah, but it's like money.
Money.
Oh,
Cheddar.
Talk to him.
Yes,
Talk
that's
to
my
him.
homie. He's not
Yeah.
feeling well.
I need a new whip, yeah, cause I know that you're still ballin'. She just wanna go back to the future, so I brought that girl a DeLorean. 21 minutes until I gotta go, so I told that girl I'm gonna slaughter it.
From a distance, Uzi might seem like another mumble melodic rapper that just does the style way better than most of them. But when you examine his lyrics and his writing, even though none of that shit is written down, Uzi is a lyricist at heart. What he lacks in narrative and serious topics, he more than makes up for in wordplay, similes, punchlines, and imagery. These literary devices will give your raps color, personality, humor, and life. So what is wordplay? Simple. It's a play on words used to amuse the audience. It shows your wittiness to your listeners. And why is it so important? Because basic rappers just state things and talk shit. It takes a level of skill in order to play with words and flip phrases, and listeners appreciate that when they hear it. One more important thing I want you guys to remember is how important it is to use slang. It is very critical. Slang is a form of basic wordplay. If you don't use up-to-date slang, or if you don't use slang at all, your raps will come off unauthentic because you'll sound like an outsider. All right, so let's look at the example for Lo Mein. In the first line, he uses the word chopstick to go along with large lo mein. Now, of course, he isn't talking about actual Chinese food. He's just using the slang words chopstick to talk about his gun. The wordplay with that goes along with lo mein. And then in this next line, he follows it up with extra clip in it to let you know he's actually talking about a gun, not chopsticks. Okay, in the next one, he says Balmain pocket filled with fresh romaine. This is a metaphor. He's equating his money to fucking lettuce. You know what I'm saying? Where a regular rapper would have just said his Balmain pocket is filled with money, or filled with racks, or filled with hundreds. No, he's saying his pockets are filled with salad. Okay, in the next one, I stay with the cash like an XO chain. This is actually a simile because it's using like. Cash is a guy that works for the XO label, and so I'm pretty sure he has an XO chain. You know, this is just another thing of wordplay. You know, he's not actually talking about the man Cash, he's just talking about his money, but he stays with it like an XO chain. And let's look in the last one. When I came to the club, make it storm hurricane. Of course, this is a basic one. We know what making it rain means, but it's just using this type of language, making it storm hurricane. You know, that adds imagery. You know, it's like a hurricane of money, where a regular rapper would just said he's making it rain. No, Uzi's making it storm hurricane. You know what I'm saying? And this just adds a layer of imagery. It adds a layer of depth to what you're saying. So I'm going to show you how you can implement similes, metaphors, puns, homonyms into your writing style. The most important thing about wordplay is finding connections. Whatever phrase, word, idiom, or everyday saying you use, it has a literal and a figurative meaning usually. So take the term under the weather. We know the figurative meaning for under the weather is sick, and we can take that connection and pair it with rain because we know rain is a literal meaning for weather, and we can come up with some type of wordplay. So with that, I came up with my sunroof sick, nigga, nothing is better. Every time it rain, I be feeling under the weather. That would be a metaphor, because a metaphor is when you give something a meaning that isn't literal. We know a sunroof can't really get sick, but because sick is a metaphor for cool, I'm also using the literal meaning, which is not feeling well, and I wrap that up with feeling under the weather. Let's use one more metaphor. I'm gonna take the phrase piece of cake. Now we all know the figurative meaning for piece of cake means easy. The literal meaning of piece of cake would, of course, be cake. But in my example, I took the slang meaning of cake being money, and I came up with 10 bands for a show that was a piece of cake. That one is actually a double entendre, which is another form of wordplay, which means something has two meanings, because the piece of cake has two meanings within the context. You see how through connections we can create imaginative bars? Now let's move on to similes. Similes are when you compare two things using like or as. So if we're talking about diamonds, we know slang for diamonds is ice, light, shine, water, or whatever. So if I use the water connection to diamonds, I would say something like, my diamonds, they look like the ocean. I know, super creative, right? Let's get into another one. Let's take Ferrari. We know Ferraris are fast, right? Well, what else is fast? We know cheetahs are fast. We know the speed of sound is fast. So I can come up with something like the Rari is as fast as the speed of sound. The better the connection, the more outrageous, the more outlandish, just makes for better bars. This is how you begin to write better punchlines also, because the right use of wordplay can invoke humor or the wow factor in your listeners. Homonyms are basically two or more words having the same spelling or pronunciation but different meanings or origins. So an example for homonyms would be the word right as in your right hand, and then the word right as in writing. You know what I'm saying? So I could be like, I got a bad bitch to my left and my right. I got these hard bars, I never gonna write. You know what I'm saying? I know, super fire, right? But it's just using words that sound exactly the same but have different meanings. Now, another form of wordplay would be the pun. A pun makes use of words that have more than one meaning or words that sound similar but have different meanings to a humorous effect. Now, these can be homonyms, but not all puns are homonyms. And the better the connection, the better the punchline, the better the wordplay. Now, I want you guys to take a phrase or a word or an everyday saying and come up with your best piece of wordplay. It can either be a simile, a metaphor, a pun, a double entendre, and put them in the comments. I'll find the best one and I'll give you a free month on the Patreon. Once again, I thank you guys for watching. Thanks for liking and subscribing and all the support. Thanks for the love. Thanks for the hate. Let's be great.